Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, July 10th, 2023. It is the latest installment of Sports Talk Live with your host, myself, Nick Burt. We got really nothing going on live in the sporting world right now. We have the Home Run Derby on, but I feel like these skill competitions for any sport, basketball, hockey, especially hockey, the football with the Pro Bowl, whatever they do, Home Run Derby, it's all outgrown its usefulness, I guess I'd say. I personally just don't find a ton of enjoyment from them. They're made for TV products, basically. I don't find much enjoyment in them, but that doesn't mean other people don't find enjoyment in it. So if you're looking for Home Run Derby coverage, this is not the place, because we won't be talking about that at all. Unless, of course, we see something absolutely outstanding. I don't see that happening. But we do have some things to get to in the sports world. One of the main ones being the story we'll get right into. Northwestern has fired Pat Fitzgerald, their head football coach, after I believe was a 17-year tenure as head coach at Northwestern. Absolutely terrible allegations came out this weekend of things going on within the program, hazing, racism. It's just, there was no way that he was going to survive this, basically. This all started on Friday when it was announced that he was suspended for 2 weeks without pay after an internal investigation that just led to questions, because I don't really think a lot of people knew that the program was being investigated from the Northwestern side of things. Then a story comes out from the Daily Northwestern, which is the student newspaper at Northwestern, that details all these allegations, and it's much worse than what everybody was thinking. And as soon as that story hit and it started to make its way into, the main media outlets, there was going to be no surviving this for Pat Fitzgerald. Given that it took until now, it kind of seemed like maybe Northwestern is possibly going to try to let this blow over. I didn't think that they could, especially given that it is Northwestern. But there, like I said, there was no way that he was going to survive this. So Northwestern now, I'd say it's an interesting spot, but it really isn't. The whole program needs to be restarted from the top down, by the way things are sounding. It's just not a good look for absolutely anybody right now. So this is probably going to be just a dud year. Not that it wasn't going to be anyways, given that they went 1-11 last year. I didn't think there was going to be a ton of improvement this year. It does look like they're naming the defensive coordinator, David Braun, as acting head coach. I'd assume, given that we are less than a month away now from fall practice starting, he's going to be the coach the whole year, and they'll probably maybe go 1-11 again, and they will start a head coaching search technically immediately, but somebody won't be in the job until after the season. This is a very tough job given, the academic standards with Northwestern. That's always been a huge problem for them. That's why they have been so unsuccessful in their history. So, Pat Fitzgerald was Northwestern's greatest coach of all time in, well, I won't say any sport. There are a few other coaches that would have that title over him, but by far their best football coach of all time. He didn't lead them to a Rose Bowl or win a Big Ten title. He went to a Big Ten title game, but no New Year's Six. So you could say Gary Barnett's still the best head coach in Northwestern history for leading them to that Rose Bowl in '96. But it is somewhat a sad way to see him go out, given all that success. But if this was going on for years, that completely washes all of that away. So it's going to be interesting to watch what Northwestern looks like this year. I don't think it's going to be great. I don't expect anything from them at all. I wasn't truly expecting anything from them if he was head coach anyways. So just very fast moving story basically. Like I said, this started on Friday afternoon, and here we are now on Monday night, and he is now unemployed, probably won't have a job for a few years, then we'll get a analyst job. I don't know where, but it just seems like that's the way it's going to go. So that's the main sports story tonight, but there are still other things going on, especially in the NHL. Last night, we finally saw the trade that some people were waiting for. Alex DeBrincat gets traded to the Detroit Red Wings. It's been a trade that's been talked about since even before the draft, basically since the Cup final ended. It seemed like DeBrincat was not staying in Ottawa, given that he was an RFA this year, and the preferred destination was Detroit. Well, the trade finally happens. He is traded to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for Dominic Kubiak, Donovan Sabango, plus a conditional 2024 first-round pick. The condition on that is the Red Wings can choose if it's their own pick or the Bruins pick, and then a 2024 fourth-round pick. I see a lot of people saying, Detroit fleeced them in this trade, but it seems kind of equal. I believe the contract that DeBrincat ended up signing, I do believe, plays a part in grading this trade. It was a 4-year, $7.875 average annual value, so that will be the cap hit for those 4 years. So he'll be a UFA in, what would that be, 2027, I believe. Yes, if my math is correct there, he will be a UFA in 2027. He gets a decent payday now, and the Senators get a first-round pick, which kind of was expected. A lot of people expected it to be, the Red Wings' first-round pick this year, but this trade happened before the draft. Obviously, that didn't happen. So, like I said, I put the trade right about 50-50. If I had to lean one way, I'm going to go with the Senators. It's just, if you look at the Red Wings lineup, it's prepared for somebody like DeBrincat because they don't have anybody. But once again, they don't have anybody. They're not going to be contending. I don't think they're going to be close to playoffs. You can hear or listen to Detroit fans say, they're going to make the playoffs this year. No, they're not. The East is still as stacked as ever. And I don't see anybody getting dethroned out of there. You have Buffalo, who I think is going to have one of those breakout years. You had Pittsburgh, who missed the playoffs this year. They kind of feel like they're retooling. I'm not going to say that they're going to go far, but I think they can get back into the playoffs at least. You're not going to make the playoffs. I'm sorry. And this Iser plan, I'm not one to question, but it does not look great right now, to be honest. And they can say, oh, well, they're building for a cup. Well, it's year 4 of his tenure in Detroit, and they've shown little improvement. They've gone from, finishing, I don't think they were dead last in the league, but they were close to last most of the times, to, finishing middle of the lottery pack, basically. So, I don't know. I don't believe in this Iser plan, but I also like it because it gives me content to talk about as somebody who, also kind of dislikes the franchise. So it's kind of funny for me to watch all this happen. He's brought in as the savior, and they haven't even sniffed the playoffs yet. So that's my take on that. So, like I said, I would probably lean with the Senators winning this trade, but it's close, like I said. I think that first-round pick could be influential on this trade, depending on which pick it ends up with. It's most likely going to end up with Boston's pick, but, crazier things have happened. It's going to be Boston's pick. Unless Boston goes out and has an absolutely terrible year, and, they're like top 5 in the lottery, then it's going to be Detroit's pick, but I don't think that's going to happen. We do not have to worry about that. So given that, that's really the only NHL news that has happened since, Wednesday, because we didn't have a show on Friday. So that is that. Nothing really in the NBA world. Like we said, the Damian Lillard trade still not happening. There's not a lot of news on it at all. So who knows when that's coming. That might not come at all. You never know. So now moving on, we had a great weekend of CFL action. Week 5, what a weekend. Great football all around Canada. It started off on Thursday night with the Saskatchewan Roughriders defeating the Edmonton Elks in Regina 12-11 on a game-winning Rouge with, I believe it was like a minute 10 left. It was a kickoff after the Roughriders tied the game with a touchdown, and they go for the kickoff. The ball bounces into the end zone. The Elks returner, which I'm completely forgetting his name right now, but, he's a rookie American, so therefore, in his back of the mind, I'll take it for a touchback. Well, he grabs the ball, takes a knee, and it's one of those moments where you forget, hey, there are different rules here. If I do this, it's going to give them a point. And that's exactly what it did. And the Rough Riders win on a game-winning Rouge, and it's absolutely incredible. But, you also feel bad for the Elks, given that. The Elks' 2 closest games this year have been against the Rough Riders. They've played really well against them, but almost absolutely terrible against any other team, which kind of makes me mad. But it is what it is. A win is a win, so I am happy the Rough Riders won that game. The Elks fall to 0-5. We'll get to that in a minute, but their downward spiral just continues. On Friday night, we had the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeating the Calgary Stampeders 24-11. Once again, kind of just showing that loss in 2 weeks ago now against BC, it was more of an anomaly more than anything. The Blue Bombers still look like the Blue Bombers, so no real surprises there. I'm kind of surprised with how the Calgary Stampeders are playing. I figured they'd be a little bit better than they are right now, so kind of surprising to me with that. But again, the Blue Bombers just look that good. I still think they're going to at least win the West. So Saturday night, the Hamilton Tiger Cats avoid a late comeback from the Ottawa Red Blacks and defeat them 21-13. The Red Blacks were 3 yards away, I believe, from scoring a game-winning potential game-tying touchdown right as the clock hit 0. What a game that was. The CFL had some really great games this weekend. And then last night, the BC Lions defeated the Montreal Alouettes 35-19. The score isn't indicative of, the entertainment that was brought. I thought this was the most entertaining weekend of football the CFL has had this season. Now, given that, there are only 4 other weekends to choose from, but I personally thought this has been the best weekend so far. We saw a lot of good games, good action, and, that's all you can ask for. A lot of entertainment. So given that, we'll take a quick look at the standings. Toronto still up at the top right now, 3-0 on the East. They're the only undefeated team left. The Montreal Alouettes are at 2-2. They start off 2-0. Now they fall back to 2-2 after 2 losses back-to-back to the Blue Bombers and Lions. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out the rest of the year. The Tiger Cats fall to 1-3, and the Red Blacks are at 1-3 also. The Tiger Cats now hold that tiebreaker. So interesting times in the East Division, as we always seem to say here. And in the West, the Lions are still top of the division on tiebreaker at 4-1. Blue Bombers are at 4-1. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are at 3-1. The Calgary Stampeders are at 1-3. And the only winless team left, the Edmonton Elks, they're at 0-5. So given that your CFL Week 5 recap will, of course, have the power rankings Wednesday night. Should be interesting to see where teams land. I can probably tell you Edmonton's going to be at 9. I don't think they're going to move off of that this year. So given that, this is where I would usually say, well, there's nothing else to talk about. Well, guess what? We are going to dive into the court action in London. And by court, you might be saying, what basketball is going on in London? No. We are headed to the tennis courts. The championships of Wimbledon have reached their quarterfinal stages for both the men's and women's singles. A great tournament out in London that has been absolutely derailed by rain. It seems like half the days have been derailed by rain or darkness because Wimbledon has a curfew of 11 p.m. So play has to stop by then, so we've seen a lot of interrupted games, and we've seen that because of this rain. It's delayed a lot of games, or matches, I should say. And it's just, it's been a good tournament, though. So first, we'll take a look at the men's singles quarterfinal stage. So you have the number 1 overall player in the world, Carlos Alcaraz, going up against the number 6 player in the world, Holger Rune. Should be an interesting match. I still see Alcaraz moving on. I see him in the final, honestly. Obviously, we'll talk about who I see in the final on the other side of the bracket when we get there. In the second match of the quarterfinals, you have Daniil Medvedev facing off against the Christopher Eubanks, the only American left in the tournament. Upset win today. So he will be looking for another upset against the number 3 player in the world right now in Medvedev. I don't rate his chances, but crazier things have happened. I think he's probably the worst player of the 8 left. That's not that shouldn't be taken like that. He's not a terrible player. It's just out of the 8, he's number 8. On the other side of the bracket, you have Yannick Skinner, the Italian, number 8 in the world, facing off against Roman Staffelulin. Probably butchered that, but we're figuring this out. And then in the last match of the quarterfinals, the champion, I believe, of this tournament, we'll see on Sunday, of course, but number 2, Novak Djokovic, facing off against Andrei Rublev. Djokovic has played an absolutely outstanding tournament so far. Really enjoyed his play so far. He just broke the men's all-time majors record at the French Open, which was just a month ago. Now he's trying to break the overall record, I believe, because breaking the men's record tied him with Serena Williams for overall. So now he is possibly going to break the overall record with a win at Wimbledon. I like his chances. He's been the favorite all tournament. I look forward, hopefully, to a Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic final. I think that would be a very interesting final to watch. I could be a 5-setter. It would be a great match to watch on Sunday morning. So given that, we will take a look at the women's side of the bracket. Iga Swiatek, number 1 player in the world, most likely going to win this tournament. She has just been absolutely dominating competition in these majors as of late. So I will not be surprised at all to see her lifting the trophy at the end of this tournament for the women on Saturday. She's facing off against the wild card player Ilinka Steovinga, the Ukrainian. She beat Victoria Azarenka. I believe that was Sunday. That was a very good match. A great tiebreaker to end it in the third set. Very entertaining. In the second quarterfinal, we have the number 4 player in the world, Jessica Pegula, facing off against the Czech Martina Vondaruska. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I could be wrong there. I think Pegula moves through on this. I think Pegula probably has the best chance against Swiatek, but I still think Swiatek moves on. And then on the other side of the bracket, you have the Ilinka Ryablenka facing off against Ans Jabeur, who is the finalist from last year, lost in the final. That should be an outstanding match right there. Most likely going to go 3 sets. That's going to be an absolute match to watch of this quarterfinal. I think it's the best match out of all 8 quarterfinals, men's and women's. Should be a very entertaining match. And then the number 2 player in the world, Aryna Sabalenka, facing off against the number 25 player in the world, Madison Keys, in the last quarterfinal. I honestly see all the higher seeds making it through to the semis. I think it's going to be Swiatek versus Pegula and Ryablenka versus Sabalenka. And then that Ryablenka-Sabalenka potential match, that could be absolutely outstanding to watch also. That could be an absolutely outstanding match. But full predictions before we get to the end of this tournament. I do think it's going to be Swiatek that wins it for the women's, and I think it's going to be Djokovic that wins it for the men's. So given that, now that is officially going to be it for tonight. There's not much else going on. Like I said, just the home run derby, as Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners has hit 41 home runs right now in the first round. Believe that was number 42 as he comes to the end of his time. I guess that was not 42, but he hit 41. Yeah, it is what it is. So given that is it for tonight. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this edition of Sports Talk Live. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'm sure hopefully there will be something to talk about. Most likely we can take a look at Wimbledon once again. We might have trades Wednesday, the most boring day in sports, given that there are no games from any of the top 4 leagues. That's ESPYs night, which that's another event that is long over past its time, but we'll figure something out for Wednesday. It should be an entertaining stream, to say the least. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you liked this video. If you stumbled across it, like, subscribe, and we will be back here on Wednesday for another edition of Sports